All right, welcome to the Cover 2 podcast. I am Wyatt here with Ethan. We are looking at week 14 in the NFL. This is, if for most of your fantasy leagues, this is probably the last regular season week if you are in that 10 to 12 man league. So we do have big fantasy implications on this weekend. I know I'm only in 3 leagues. Looks like I'm only going to make it in 1 league, unfortunately. But I know for a lot of fantasy guys out there, this is a huge week, and it's also a huge week just for regular sports bettors. So, Ethan, glad to have you here. And as you can tell, we're both Lions fans. I'm kind of a flip-flop Lions fan. As you can see, Ethan is loaded up on Detroit. So before we get into anything here, Ethan, what do you got to say about the Detroit team? Because they're kind of on a heater right now. Is it something that we should watch out for, or is it just a normal Lions kind of thing to lead us on?
Yeah, I mean, they look good. They're they're still in the playoff hunt. They would have I think I saw if they win out, they'd have an 89% chance to make the playoffs. So they still do need a little help, even if they win out, but their schedule's not that hard. I think it is interesting. Their combined losses, the record of the teams they've lost to this year is like 60-24, I
Wow.
believe. So yeah, no team under 500 that we've lost to. So I don't know. I mean, it's probably gonna be same old Lions. We're gonna get probably go on another 3-4 game win streak, lose the last one, and not make the playoffs or something stupid like that. So, yeah, we'll see. But same thing for me in fantasy. I'm in 3 leagues. Looks like one of them playoff starts this week. So, made the playoffs in that league. And I have another league where I was on an airplane when we drafted, so completely auto drafted my team. It was complete dog shit, like the worst team you could possibly think of. And I've somehow clawed my way back up to 4th place with uh 2 regular season weeks remaining.
Okay.
So hoping that'd probably be my best fantasy turnaround in my life. So I'll tell you about the team off air, but it was dog shit.
Yeah, I fantasies give I don't know. I do well some years, and then like this year I have, 3 leagues. I am dead last in both leagues, and then the one I'm like the 6th playoff spot. So not my best year in fantasy, but that one team is kind of keeping me alive. We did have to bring in the Detroit Lions because we are both from Michigan. We actually don't live super far away from each other, or where we grew up, just a couple school districts away.
Yep.
So we did have to bring up the Lions just because we don't have that much to say about the Lions because they are usually never relevant. So we had to bring that up, and we do talk a little college football as well. Michigan is in the college football playoff. We'll be playing TCU on New Year's Eve. I did buy my plane ticket to LA for the January 9th game. Haven't pulled trigger on the ticket yet. It's sitting right around 900 to $1,000, not
Ooh.
including the fees they add on it, which is another 150 to 200. So at least I bought the ticket, which is I think refundable up until I don't know 15 days. So I have 15 days to decide. But exciting time for us Michigan people, and we usually don't have a whole lot to be happy about, but we had to share that on this podcast. We'll start with our Thursday night preview. So this game will be played tomorrow. We are recording on Wednesday, so just keep that in mind. A weird matchup. If you looked at this game at the beginning of the season, it looked like it would be a pretty good game. But now with both teams, the Rams now are one of the worst teams in the league, and they are playing against the Raiders of Las Vegas. Raiders have won, I believe, 3 in a row now after starting off horribly. And the Rams have pretty much ended their season with Stafford and Kupp both out with injuries. As a Lions fan, again, not too upset about the Rams season going down the drain. The Lions did get the Rams pick this year in the first round for the draft. So I believe it's sitting at like 3 right now, maybe 4.
Yep.
I'm not sure how high up we can go, but I don't think we're going to get the one spot with the Texans playing like they are. But we will probably be rooting for the Rams' demise, which has been great this year. I'll let you take it away with this game preview to start. What are your initial thoughts? And do you have any possible bets that you're looking at?
Yeah. So, like you said, hope LA loses this game to keep that. It is third right now. Keep that
Okay.
pick alive. I believe they might be tied with Chicago, I believe. So if Chicago gets another win, they'll move up to 2. But yeah, like you said, I think that's as high as it's gonna get. But as far as this game goes, it is just super weird. I mean, sitting at 6 there, it's just a weird spread. Typically, I like to play against the road team on Thursday night football just because short week travel,
Right.
not as you lose a full day of practice and prep. Um, but Vegas to LA is nothing. So I don't take that into consideration too much in this one. Um, Vegas actually has the third best pass defense in the league this year, which really kind of shocked me. They're coming on strong as of late. Um, and LA has the fourth best rushing defense. So I don't know if Jacobs and company are going to have the success on the ground that we've seen them have lately. Of course, I think Donald is still out.
Yeah.
So that probably doesn't help there. But yeah, it's really tough. I don't love much in this game. Another interesting thing about Vegas is they're actually 2-5 on the road this year, but their two losses are both in overtime, so they don't have a single regulation win on the road. Um, LA, two of their three wins are at home. So I think I would have to lean LA in this game. The line is just kind of fishy. It looks so easy. Oh, Vegas is rolling. They just need to win by a touchdown against who knows, Baker Mayfield maybe with
Yeah.
3 days to learn the offense, or John Wolford, or who knows who they're throwing out at quarterback there. I don't think it really matters. I think it's going to be a closer, tighter game. I think it stays under. Um, Although the thing that worries me about that is the Raiders in the last 3 games do average the most yards per play in the NFL. So they are getting hot at the right time offensively, but I just think it's going to be closer, uglier. So I would lean LA +6 under 44.5. Don't know if I will be getting to the window on any of those.
Yeah, that spread is, 6 point spread for a Vegas team who, again, as you said, just turned it up the last 2, 3 weeks. That's just too much in my mind, even though the Rams do suck. And again, their quarterback, John Wolford, is not good. And who knows if they're going to bring in someone else. But yeah, that 6 points, even still, is just too much for me in a pretty big matchup between two usually respectable teams. So I am agreeing with you on that. And I can't pull myself, though, to take the Rams spread just because I just don't really believe in them that much. But I will be taking Vegas money line. It's at -260 right now. I'm not going to take that straight. I'll probably make it into a same game parlay with the under as well. So I do like the under at under 44.5 right now. I believe it is. The reason for this, I just, again, with the passing defense from the Raiders, and then, the Rams defensive ability to stop the run, I think it's going to be a low scoring game because the Raiders really do have success with Jacobs. And obviously they have Devontae Adams at wide receiver. But if Jacobs can't get the ball rolling, then I think Adams will be locked down or double teamed, or the passing game will struggle as well. So I'm making this underplay on the notion that the run game is going to get stopped. But I could see this being like a 13-17 game. And, that 6 points, I just don't really trust in a game that I think is going to be a pretty low scoring. So I do like the under. I think the under is a good play. I'm probably going to add that with the money line, and whoever's playing at quarterback for the Rams will probably add them over an interception. Again, I'm not sure exactly what the odds are going to be on that. It'll probably be pretty decent. But I think the Raiders are going to win this one pretty easily. But again, that 6 points is just tough for me to overcome. And it is a divisional game, so it should be a pretty tough. Oh no, it's not a divisional game. Never mind. Just really, they're 3 hours apart, so it'll be a
Right.
close game, and I just can't convince myself to take that -6.
Right.
So you're probably right. The Rams +6 is probably going to be a decent play, but I do think we are in agreement that the under we're more confident in the under than picking the spread on either side of this one.
For sure. I think it also, you touched on Adams. He's going to have Jalen Ramsey on him all game. So
Right.
that should limit at least big plays to him. So, even if he's getting the ball, I think he had 2 deep ones for touchdowns last week against the Chargers. So even if he's catching the ball, it should still take some time off the clock. And yeah, I see this one staying under by quite a bit.
Yeah, and the Raiders, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I said the Raiders were just done, like they're terrible, whatnot. And then they won 3 in a row. They're sitting at 5-7 right now. which is third in the AFC West. But if we talk about the wild card race, they're not in it, but they're pretty close behind. You have obviously the AFC East is a powerhouse right now. All three of those teams in that wild card chase in the AFC East are over the Raiders. But besides that, the Raiders are one game behind the Chargers, and then you do have the Bengals. So the Raiders are probably sitting at 5 or 6 in that wild card race. So not completely dead. So I think, a win here this weekend or Thursday night, a win here would really propel the Raiders into some sort of a playoff, at least hope. It's going to be a small chance, but maybe that could make them, win or have motivation to win the last couple games of the season. So I do think Raiders pull it out. Again, I'm not trusting that 6-point spread there.
Yeah, you really have to question the Rams want to win anymore anyway. As defending Super Bowl champ, this is not the season they envisioned. I can only imagine they're just ready to get to the last game of the season, pack it in, and figure out what's the move next year. So, yeah, it's tough on the spread.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate to see a team like that. I did like the Rams. I liked Stafford. I really like Aaron Donald. I hate Jalen Ramsey, but I do like Aaron Donald. And it's just a little disappointing. Donald's probably done after this year. He was debating even coming back. Probably one of the best interior D linemen to ever play the game. Stafford will just always have a place in our hearts from Detroit. He's getting up there too in age. So I don't know. The time of the Rams' success might be coming to an end, after not having a first round pick for however many years. That really is going to catch up and bite you in the butt. And it looks like that's happening quicker than a lot of people were thinking. So they're in a rebuild stage. I'm surprised they didn't make any moves on OBJ, but there's probably some off the field activities going on there that's preventing some sort of deals to be made. But either way, that's going to be a pretty interesting game. I am going to I'll probably craft a crazy same game parlay that will be on probably the Cover 2 podcast Twitter, if you want to check that one out. Moving on to our Monday Night Football preview. This one, again, we are a couple days away from this, but New England will be playing at the Arizona Cardinals. The spread right now is New England's a 1.5-point favorite. The over-under is 44 in this game. My initial thought on this is to take New England. Arizona, I thought with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins coming back that they would be a little bit better. It turns out they're really not there. This season is pretty much done for them. They are not even close to coming into playoff contention. I don't believe they're 4-8 right now. That they don't have a chance in the NFC. That's just so high up there in teams with 7+ wins. So they're done. And New England's always a really good team. And I just think this is going to be an ugly game that I'm not super excited about. But what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this one's kind of tough for me as well, but I do lean New England. I'd probably just money line them at that point rather than lay the 1.5 and risk anything fishy going on there. But yeah, like you mentioned, Arizona's just not that good. This is actually, in my opinion, just a horrible scheduling spot for Arizona as well.
Okay.
Obviously, they're coming off their bye, so they should be the more well-rested team. But New England's coming off Thursday Night Football, and this is a Monday night game, so they're getting as much rest just about that Arizona did. So it's almost like a second bye for New England. Kind of sucks. It's almost like Arizona's bye got wasted there. But yeah, I just think Arizona's awful at home. They're 1-6 on the season. They were awful last year at home. Whatever it is, they just don't win in Arizona. New England has the way better defense. In the last 3 games, New England's actually 9th in yards per play offensively. Arizona's 27th, and yards per play against in the last 3 games, New England is 3rd, Arizona 16th. So I think New England just better team all the way across the board, better coach. They're actually 3-3 on the road this year, so they're win at home, split on the road is kind of the formula to make the playoffs.
Right.
So yeah, they're a decent road team. Arizona's a horrible home team. I think New England, better coach, better roster, better defense. So yeah, I'd take New England. I also think this game probably low scoring. I think Belichick is gonna try to keep the ball out of Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins' hands, run the clock, and I think it stays under 44.
Okay. I do like New England as well, like I said. I personally like Mac Jones in this game. He's had a weird stretch of the last 4 games. He's had a weird stretch where he's either throwing for, 280, 3 touchdowns, or where he's throwing for, 120, 130. I think Mac Jones is going to go over passing yards in this game. The line's not out yet for player props on Monday, since this is recorded on Wednesday, but I will be taking Mac Jones over passing yards, and I am kind of tempted to take the over in this game. As you said, Arizona is a pretty bad home team, but they're in that position where there's nothing to lose. I really think that, I don't know, I think that they will figure something out offensively where between Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins to at least get a couple touchdowns in the air. I'm thinking, maybe like 17 points from Arizona, and then hopefully, like 27 to 17 type of game where that over is right at that 44 mark. So I think it's going to be close, but I think Arizona's going to score a little bit more than we're thinking. But I do really like Mac Jones over passing yards, kind of for a bounce back game in that Monday night matchup. We can transition. We have our week 13 recap. We're going to limit our recaps a little bit. I did post a quick little video briefly recapping every single game in the NFL that is on our Twitter and our TikTok. But there are a couple important games that we want to start in recap. So we'll start with Jacksonville, Detroit. This was my most confident play of the weekend. I did take Detroit money line. They ended up winning that one 40-14. Really big game, which I said I was excited about because it's kind of those bottom 2 teams in the league year after year playing each other. And Detroit did just absolutely spank them. So that was really fun to watch.
Yeah. First of all, you did a really nice job on that recap video. So you guys should all go check that out. It's pretty comical. So that was nice. But yeah, this game was just fantastic. This was the first game in a while I can remember just being comfortable the entire time. Detroit never punted, scored on every possession. Offense was clicking, defense looked good. So just awesome. It's a breath of fresh air that Detroit is actually winning the games that they should be winning. And like I said, their losses are against really good teams. I think the Patriots at 6-6 are the team with the worst record that Detroit's lost to. So at least we're getting it done against the teams that we should be beating. So yeah, I had a lot of fun Sunday watching that game.
And I know, we never really talk about Detroit in the playoffs, but if you're really looking at their remaining schedule, it is very easy for them, or not easy, but it's very plausible for them to go undefeated. And as you said, they still would, they wouldn't guarantee to go in undefeated. They're going to need some help, which I think they're going to get. I think it's going to get a little chaotic at the end of the season. But their last 5 games of the season are the Vikings this weekend, which somehow they're the favorite. The Jets at the Jets, which I imagine will probably be pretty close to a pick 'em, maybe a 2.5-point spread. They play at the Panthers, which I think the Lions will be favored in that one. They play home against the Bears, which I think the Lions will be favored. Then they are at Green Bay, which, I'm assuming Green Bay will probably be a 3.5 to 4-point favorite in that game. So when you think about it, there's really all 5 of those games are extremely winnable. It's going to be tough to play Green Bay at home. It always is. Chicago, even though they suck this year, it is a rivalry. The Vikings will be interesting. And then I think the Jets and the Panthers are going to be pretty easy Lions wins. So out of those 5 games, if they win out, they have set themselves up for that great wild card spot. And I think that they definitely have the ability to do that. What are your thoughts? What's your realistic vision of the Lions finishing this season? Do you think they have a chance, or are we just blowing steam out of our mouth?
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's extremely likely we'll be playing Jordan Love in that Green Bay game. I think Rodgers will be done for the year by then. They won't be playing for anything. I guess his ego could step in if he wants to play. He probably will, but I don't see any reason for him to be playing in that game. Realistically, I think we could sweep the division and then drop one of the Jets or the Panthers.
Okay.
I don't. Justin Fields could get the best of us. We kind of lucked out in Chicago earlier this year, getting that win. But since that game is at home, I think Detroit can get it done. But yeah, I think I think it's gonna be classic Detroit. They're gonna bring us right to the end, give us hope all season, and then just crush us. And probably the week 18, 17, 17, 16, somewhere in there, they're probably gonna be eliminated from the playoffs and start looking towards next year. So that's how I see it going. But
Yeah, that's probably the realistic view at it. I will say Detroit is really good at leading us on and keeping us, entertained. And then something happens and they bring us back next year in full force. Like that year is our year. So they're really good. I don't know if it's a marketing scheme or what, but they're really good at keeping us involved and hoping for the future. But I think they have a decent shot. I don't think they're going to go 5-0 our last five. I do think there's a real solid chance that we do go 4-1, like you said, splitting that non-conference game. But again, a lot has to happen, and realistically, they're probably going to fall just short. But it is kind of interesting and fun to think about Lions having a chance in the postseason.
it's fun
Moving
too that
on,
we have
go ahead.
LA's pick. So
Right.
usually at this point in the season, I'm rooting for them to lose to get a better draft pick. But at this rate, I mean, it looks like we're gonna have a top five at least, and then wherever we fall. So it's kind of fun not having to root for them to suck.
Yeah, and we'll get into mock drafts and whatnot in the upcoming weeks. But
For sure.
I think and I don't want to get too into it, but we do need help on defense, and I think if we can get that Alabama dude, that would be unreal. He is an absolute unit, and I think would really help our team. But who knows what we do? We're usually not the greatest in the drafts, but I do think our draft last year we did really well. So maybe
Yep.
we can figure something out and do that. Moving on, we got the Jets at the Vikings. This was an interesting game. The Vikings squeak it out 27-22. Another high-scoring game for Minnesota. Really makes me start questioning their defense. Obviously, Minnesota finds ways to get wins. They are 10-2. But it seems like a majority of the games that they play is scoring in those high 40s, low 50s. So this will be interesting and keep aware of when, Detroit and Minnesota play this upcoming week because of the high power offense and then the lack of defense on both teams. That's coming very apparent. The Jets put up a fight. I did not expect that to happen. Mike White threw for 369 passing yards. He was having himself a day. They just couldn't pull it out at the end. And again, there was still a lot of time left. Minnesota easily could have marched down and kicked the game-winning field goal. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that game? It was much closer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Happy Minnesota pulled out the win there. But yeah, their defense sucks. I mean, they're just giving up chunk plays left and right. Actually was not nearly as close as the score would indicate, in my opinion. I think Minnesota was up quite big in that game, 21-3, I want to say at one point, maybe halftime.
Okay.
Third quarter, somewhere in there. But their defense is just so bad. They just kept letting the Jets get chunk play after chunk play, get right back into it, and probably should have ended up losing that game. Got a game sealing pick on the goal line to end it. Yeah, for future implications for my future bets, that was huge for Minnesota to get that win, and more importantly, the Jets to get that loss. So I was happy with the outcome, but yeah, real
Is that
issues.
future still hanging in there?
The Jets one,
Yeah.
the Jets one is. I also have Buffalo winning that division,
Okay.
in a couple of different parlays. So need them to kind of pull away there, and then I have Minnesota winning the North, which is basically locked
Yeah,
up.
that
But,
you can count that as a W. That Jets
yeah.
one is staying interesting because you have Jets under team wins, don't you?
I have Jets under divisional team wins.
Division. Okay.
So it will be interesting because I believe they still have 3 games left, or maybe two left. So I need them to lose both. But
yeah, and that was looking dead pretty quick. So it's kind of crazy that it's still alive after 14 weeks.
Yeah.
Moving on with the NFC East showdown, Washington and the Giants split it 20-20. I kind of said this in my recap. This is exactly how I imagine this game to go. If you close your eyes or squint your eyes a little bit, the Commanders and the Giants are almost identical. They're just very similar teams, in my opinion. Really not good quarterback play from either one. Decent run game. Wide receivers are, not really talked about. We don't really know how they're good this year. So this is exactly what I thought two equally matched teams would do. I will say this though, as much as I kind of just wrecked on the quarterback play, Heineke is kind of a guy. He's 6-1-1 right now in his last 7 games.
Mhm.
That's and I don't know the stats of it, but that has to be up there with the highest 7 game win percentage in the Commanders' history, probably. So he's doing something right. Again, I've kind of harped on him all podcast. I really like the guy. I think what he's doing is exactly what Washington needs. He's kind of that rah guy that people can um, build behind, and I think he's the guy, and I think they can keep him cheap. I don't think he's going to get a huge new contract just because he's not very good. But I think they kind of found their guy at least for the end of this season, and I'm happy that Wentz is on the bench. Saquon did do well on my fantasy team. He had himself quite the day. He's pretty much all that's holding this Giants team alive. Danny Dimes isn't really doing it. Their wide receiver play is pretty terrible. But Saquon is a difference maker, and he is, I think, solely bringing the Giants to their success.
Yeah, I couldn't have really said it better myself. I will say, yeah, Heineke definitely that's the best in Commanders history as they've been here for a year.
Yeah.
Redskins history, I don't know, but
Football team, Commanders, Redskins. Yeah.
yeah, um, but yeah, I mean, both decent defensive lines as well, decent defense. But yeah, quarterbacks almost identical. Receivers, like you said, I mean, Washington has some decent ones, but they're just not as good as maybe they should be. With McLaurin and Jahan Dotson's pretty good. Curtis Samuel, uh, but yeah, they don't make plays consistently to get them talked about. Um, yeah, only that really takeaway I have here is I'm kind of pissed off we didn't get a winner, because I was gonna hammer the other team. They play next week. I think we've talked about this on the
Yeah.
show
Yep.
before. Their wacky schedule. They play next week, and I was just gonna hammer the loser. So now I have no idea how to play that next game. You probably have to lean Washington at home, but kind of sucks. I was hoping to get a decisive victory by one of the two in this game.
Yeah, I forgot we talked about that. And to add on to that, I figured if it was going to be a high scoring game, I'm projecting a low score. If it's a low score, if it's projecting a high score. But this is pretty much right in the middle of the road there.
Right.
So I have no idea what's going to happen. That's not this weekend. That's next weekend, right? Week 15, where
Correct.
they okay.
I
Yeah. So I have
also
no idea what's going to happen in that.
Yeah. I also have no idea if the tie helps Detroit, hurts Detroit playoff chances.
Yeah, it screws. Someone could probably figure it out, but for a simple mind like myself, throwing a tie in there and teams that are fighting for that wild card spot, I can't wrap my mind around what that means.
Right.
Um,
Same way.
yeah, so the NFC East right now is 11-1 Philly, 9-3 Cowboys, who are probably the hottest team in football right now.
Hmm.
Giants are 7-4-1, and Commanders are 7-5-1. So I think all the Eagles are definitely in with the divisional win. Cowboys are definitely in. And then in the wild card, you got you got Seahawks 7-5, Commanders 7-5, Giants 7-4. So those are your 3 wild cards right now. I think it helps. I think that helps us. It doesn't matter what the Bucks record is because no one else in that NFC South's getting in. So I think the Lions are just up against those 3 teams that have 7 wins. So we will have to have one of them fall, but I do know a win carries much more than a tie.
Yeah.
Um, I guess it would have been nice just to have, the Giants just win it outright so we can knock the Commanders out. Kind of sucks that they're both kind of still in contention, but yeah, I guess it'll work its way out. I don't know the math on ties. I literally can't wrap my mind around it.
Same. We're gonna touch on this a little more in the future segment as well. That's
Okay. Another game that I thought was going to be much more exciting than what it actually was. The Dolphins versus the 49ers. 49ers kind of handled this one 33-17. Jimmy G was injured pretty badly. It did just come out though that he is not going to have surgery on his foot. I think he fractured a bone in his foot. Right now it's projected 7 to 8 weeks, and that's a long time for week 14. But depending on what the 49ers can do, he might have the capability of coming back late in the playoffs. I don't know if he's going to be ready for that, but he's technically not ruled out for the season because he's not going to have surgery on that foot. We saw Brock Purdy come in as Jimmy G's backup. I know Brock quite a bit. My college roommate's brother played for Iowa State, where Brock went. So I saw Brock a couple of times at tailgates, talked to him a little bit, met his family. Really good kid, really good player. I don't think he's going to be a great pro, but if the 49ers don't get another quarterback, which I don't think they are, they're not going to grab Baker after they just got Christian, but I think he'll do his job. I don't think he's going to be great, but I think he can still keep them in the head of that division, and he'll probably squeak by some plays or some games. He's really good on his feet, just not the greatest passer. And as we all know, 49ers are pretty much loaded offensively. So if he just doesn't screw up too bad, I think they're going to be okay for a little bit until they can either hopefully get Jimmy G back or sign a better quarterback. But that'll be an interesting story to keep our eyes on as we move forward. Because the 49ers, as we all know, are just absolutely loaded. But if they don't have a quarterback, that could be detrimental to their season.
Yeah, I think Purdy probably lucked into the best situation since Pat Mahomes. I hold that against Mahomes, but that's another story for another time. But yeah, I mean he walks into the best defense in the league, just weapons surrounding him like crazy. Pretty good O-line, offensive minded head coach is going to help him succeed. So I actually don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I don't even know if I think Jimmy G is that good. I just think he's in a good situation down there in San Fran. But yeah, kind of, I don't know. It's kind of the worst timing for that to happen. I actually have San Fran under 10 wins on the season, which is not going to get there. I took that thinking Trey Lance was going to be the starter all season, and it probably was going to get there pretty easily if that stayed true. And now Jimmy G goes down, but there's probably not enough games left to completely blow that. And then on the flip side, I've kind of been toting about San Fran. Not quite as much as Dallas, but I do like them and their Super Bowl chances. So I don't know. I still think they have a good shot. I think there's enough talent around Purdy to kind of carry him. Yeah, I was happy they still won this game. It was my favorite of this past week in our top 5 picks. So happy to see San Fran still pull it out. But yeah, we'll see how Purdy can do. I think I agree with you. I don't think they're going to go with a different quarterback as of right now.
Yeah, and talking about Miami, I thought Miami was going to be a much better. I thought it was going to be a much better game. I didn't expect them to win, but I really did like Miami's spread in that one. I believe it got up to +4 before the game. I was really tempted to take that just because I thought Miami was going to keep it interesting. But yeah, the San Fran defense is just too good. Tua did throw for close to 300 yards, but they only got 17 points, and that San Fran offense and their defense, the combo between their fast-paced, really aggressive defense and then their slow-paced, run it down your throat offense is really hard to get a lead in, especially when they run 8 minutes off the clock every drive. So I thought that game was going to be closer, but yeah, San Fran is pretty legit. It will be, again, we have to keep in mind that they are now without their starting quarterback, but I still think they're going to be fine as long as Purdy just doesn't throw 5-6 picks a game, which I don't think he will.
Yeah, touching just really quick on Miami. I do the Better and Green show with with Zach, who's a Miami fan. He kind of opened my eyes last week to Miami's way better at home than on the road. I want to say they're first in points per game at home and like 30th points per game on the road. And that came true again last week. So just kind of something to keep in mind. Probably a play on team at home, maybe a play against on the road.
Yeah, that's a good stat that I wish I knew before. Well, I didn't put any money on that game, but before I said anything about it. The most interesting game of the night or of the weekend was that Kansas City Bengals game. We both kind of got screwed on this game a little bit. We both had the over as our favorite over of the weekend, and they were your most confident play, the Chiefs. So unfortunately, we got screwed once again on a similar game. But yeah, Cincinnati pulls that one out 27-24. Joe Burrow had a really good game. There's just something about him and playing against Patty Mahomes. He's won his last 3 matchups against them. He beat them the AFC championship game last year. And there's just something about Burrow that I don't know if the Chiefs can't figure out. But this, in my opinion, was a pretty big statement win for Joe. and possibly has a lot of implications on his MVP future odds. I know a buddy of mine, he has both Mahomes and Burrow MVP. So that was a pretty big matchup for him. And he's now talking about hedging that, expecting one of those two guys to win. And I don't want to get too into futures, but I'm telling him to wait a little bit before placing that, just because I don't know what Jalen Hurts' thing is up to, because he's currently second in the running and Mahomes is first and Joe Burrow is third. But yeah, it was an exciting game. Joe looked really good. The Bengals are pretty much back after a terrible start this season. Perrine is actually, he had over 100 rushing yards. So, losing Joe Mixon doesn't seem to be that big of a problem if they have Perrine in the backfield. And then they did have Jamar Chase back. And their wide receiver core is just so good if they have, any sort of offensive line, which has kind of been their struggle the last 2 years. But it looks like they figured it out, and a really big win for the Bengals.
Yeah, Joe Burrow is Kansas City's daddy. Just absolutely owns them. Like you've mentioned, the over sucks that we did not get there. I still can't believe that didn't hit with Butker missing 51, 52-yarder. And then even after that, all you needed was a 3rd and 11 stop from the Kansas City defense. McPherson would have had like a 40-something, 42 maybe, yard field goal. Probably would have made it hit the over for us and given Kansas City enough time to maybe go down and get the money line win for me as well. So yeah, kind of a shitty game for betting. Between your buddy and I, one of us is going to win the MVP because I'm on Jalen Hurts,
Okay.
Josh Allen, and Tua. So between those 5 quarterbacks there, someone's going to make some money.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, that should wrap up all the top 5 there.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of like his odds more than mine at this point. I basically have one horse in the race with Jalen, but I did get him at some pretty good odds. I can't remember, 30-1 and 20-1 maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, really good game. Probably going to see them again in the playoffs, I'd assume, Cincy and Kansas City. And really, my biggest takeaway is Kansas City is extremely good, but if you just look at the talent on that team compared to Buffalo, Cincinnati, some of the other teams in the AFC, I mean, their leading receivers are Juju and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who,
Yeah.
I mean, Juju's probably a wide receiver 2 at best on some teams. Valdes-Scantling probably a wide receiver 4, I would say. So other than Kelsey and Mahomes, I mean, there's really not much there for them, which just shows how good Mahomes is, how good Andy Reid is. Their defense isn't even that good. So yeah, I don't know. It might be a little bit of trouble in Kansas City.
Yeah, losing Tyreek was a pretty big blow to the Chiefs, and their run game still hasn't been great as well. Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire really haven't turned it on much. But yeah, you're right. They're not, when you look at other teams, there's a lot more star power that other teams have. Kansas City just has, I don't want to say it, but they just have the best quarterback in the game and probably the best coach as
Right.
well. So it's hard to beat those two guys, and they have Kelsey as well. But yeah, they just don't have the star power that we're used to. So I still like them. I still think they're a pretty solid Super Bowl pick.
Mhm.
But if you're just looking against, a lineup, so them against another team, other teams are now the better athletic team that we usually is not the case in Kansas City. Usually they are by far the best athletes on the field, best players on the field. And that's something we're not seeing this year. So they might have to win the game just based on off strategy, which I think Andy Reid can do that.
Right.
But yeah, it's a different Kansas City than we're used to.
Since he's forgotten third receiver and Tyler Boyd would easily slot in as Kansas City's top receiver. So yeah, I mean, since he probably has the best receiving core in the league, it's probably not even that close. Just stacked. Burrow can throw to anybody.
Yeah, well, don't leave out our Lions there. They're young. They're young and aggressive.
Yeah. Once JMO's back.
Yeah. So we won't take all the games. That was our biggest ones we wanted to recap. We can now transition into our week 14 bets, previews and bets. We have 5 games that we want to talk about, but we will probably have a lot of plays on most of these. If you want to follow along both our Twitters or the Cover 2 podcast Twitter as well, we'll probably put out some plays that we don't talk about inclusively on the podcast. So the first one is, we got to do it, Detroit. probably the weirdest line of the weekend. This has this it's screaming trap. It's the biggest trap. No matter what side you want to take, this is a trap, trap, trap. A really weird line that Vegas, I don't know what they're up to. I wish I knew because then I would bet the side that they don't want me to. But either way I look at this, I think whatever side you want to do, it's like, I don't know. I think Vegas is going to win a shitload of money on this game because no one knows. So Minnesota, Detroit. Minnesota is leading the NFC North 10-2, second best record in football right now. And they are playing Detroit, who has worked their way up. They've won I believe, the last three. They're 3 out of 4, I believe. So Detroit is up on the up and coming, but again, they're playing the best team in the division, the second best record in the NFL, and Detroit is still a 2.5-point favorite. What are your thoughts on this? I think we're gonna defer a little or have a little bit different takes on this one. I like staying. I don't know. I have a hard time seeing Detroit in this one, but I'll let you take it away before I go.
Yeah. First thing that bounces out to me is I love taking underdogs at 2.5 and teasing them up to 8.5 with another team. So Minnesota is probably the most attractive teaser leg of the season, in my opinion. Absolutely love it. Already have a lot of action on Minnesota and teasers, and I can't believe it hasn't come back more towards pick'em. I think it will before kickoff. Public's gonna be all over Minnesota, which makes me kind of lean Detroit, but I just I don't know. Some teams play so much better in a underdog role than they do when they're favored. I think Detroit can fall into that. So I would like to see this line come back down closer to a pick 'em. I would love to see Minnesota go off as a 1-point favorite. So I think I'll probably end up being on Detroit money line. This is Detroit's third game in a row at home. So they've been comfortable, no travel, any of that lately, which I think is an advantage. And oddly enough, for Minnesota, they are coming off 3 home games traveling to Detroit, and then they have 2 more home games. So only 1 out of 6 games on the road, kind of unfamiliar territory in a way for them. So I kind of like the spot for Detroit. This is also a revenge game for the Lions as they lost 24-28 back in week 3. And, they usually play Minnesota pretty tough. And usually squeak out at least 1 win a year. So I could definitely see Detroit winning this one. And then offensively, Detroit is top 10 in every major category: total yards, rushing yards, passing yards, points for. And Minnesota, in their last 3, they actually are second to last in the league in yards per play with only 4.5. Detroit's 16th. So right there in the middle with 5.3. So yeah, I see Detroit winning this game. I actually, as weird as this is, both teams have good offenses and horrible defenses. Minnesota's the worst passing defense in the league. I actually think this finds a way to stay under 52.5. I could see it being extremely similar to that Chiefs Bengals game of last week, where it's just right there. It probably should hit, but just kind of finds a way to stay under. I don't feel confident enough to probably put money on that. Maybe I do. Yeah, give me money line for Detroit, hoping that comes back down closer to a pick 'em, and then the under. And Minnesota and teasers is the best way to look at this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wrote down Minnesota plus 8.5 because I will be snagging that before the line comes back down to reality. But that's a great teaser right there. I can't see, and again, I'm not entirely sure who's going to win this game, but I can't see Lions winning by 9 points. So I really like that Minnesota teaser. We'll have to figure out something else to tease that with. I'm gonna just completely disagree with both of those. I'm gonna have to take Minnesota here. I can't justify in my head as well as Detroit's playing right now. I can't justify taking them. Maybe closer to kickoff if it does come towards a pick 'em. But I just can't take Detroit minus 2.5. I probably couldn't even take Detroit plus 2.5, honestly. So there's a 4-point window, which is just gross to me. I think Minnesota minus 3, I thought was going to be this line. So it's just really weird. That's a 5-point differential of what I was thinking. So I'm going to have to go for Minnesota, and then I'm going to have to go the over here. I know it's high. Detroit in the beginning of the season was smashing these overs. Then they kind of fell into a offensive slump. They kind of are bringing that back a little bit. And just with the weakness in both these teams' secondary, we just saw Minnesota last weekend put up almost 400 passing yards to Mike White, or allowed 400 passing yards to Mike White and the Jets. I know Goff isn't a great passing quarterback, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, we have possibly Jameson coming back in full swing. There's a lot of offensive threats that I think we can get to in the air for Detroit. And then obviously Minnesota probably has the best wide receiver right now in NFL, with Justin Jefferson, and Detroit is up there with, minus or the fourth worst secondary in the league, whatever they are. So I think it's gonna be a really high passing offense on both teams. And I think that over is gonna go, or that total is gonna go quite a bit over. I could see like a 30-33 type of Minnesota win, something high scoring along those lines. It is a divisional game, so we have to be aware of divisional rivalries usually mean unders. But I just think this game's going to go over. It is the highest over of the weekend, so that you do have to keep that in mind. I hate taking the highest over or the lowest under as well. So just keep that in mind. But I do think that game's going to go over. Either way, it's going to be really interesting. Detroit's going to either prove that they really can contend for that wild card spot, or they can just let us off nice and easy by losing this game this weekend.
Yep.
So we didn't talk about this one last week, but Deshaun Watson is back. He played against Houston Texans. Really didn't have to do anything offensively. The Browns scored 3 defensive touchdowns. Of course, I played them in fantasy. They had 31 fantasy points. I would have won if they just had scored 10 like a normal team. But yeah, Watson didn't really have to do much, and they still got the win. He will have to do something this weekend against the Bengals. They're playing at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a 6-point favorite. The over-under is 47. I think Watson, with this extra week, is going to figure stuff out offensively. He needed another week just to wake up, I think. He's been away from the game for so long, and that's really hard to get adjusted to. So I think this extra week, he has 1 game under his belt. It's extra week of practice and preparing. I think he's going to turn it on offensively, but he's up against quite the challenge, as we just were complimenting the Bengals. What are your thoughts on this one, and what are you thinking?
Yeah, we'll start with last week's game. I was pretty heavily involved on the under 47 in that game, and somehow had to sweat that one out with 1 offensive touchdown scored in the game. So yeah, that was probably gonna be like bad beat of the century. If that somehow went over with just the Browns defense, basically. So having that one ended up staying under. Deshaun looked exactly like how I thought he would look coming out with 700 days off. But I agree. I think he gets another week under his belt. He's seen a game of game action again. And playing the Texans is basically like a preseason game. So I think he should look better in this game. But yeah, we mentioned when we were talking about Cincinnati and Kansas City that Joe Burrow is Kansas City's daddy. Cleveland is actually Cincinnati's daddy. They're actually, Cincy is 1-8 in their last 9 games against Cleveland. They haven't won since December 29th of 2019 when Andy Dalton was the quarterback. So that blew me out of the water. I couldn't believe that. Obviously, Cincy, that hasn't been great though. I mean, they had that great year with Burrow last year, but before then they were kind of not so good. But it is a divisional game. I think Cleveland can keep it close. I think Cincy gets the win. Cincy has revenge in this game after kind of getting their ass kicked week 8, I believe it was, against Cleveland. And Cleveland also has Baltimore on deck. I don't think it's necessarily a look-ahead spot. They need every win they can get, especially divisionally. So I think, they need to focus on Cincy here. Cincy's off a big win where they put all of their effort into Kansas City. So I just think the spot favors Cleveland. Both teams are also extremely similar statistically, with yards per play, yards per game, rushing, passing, points for, points against, really everything. Defensively, very similar. So I just think 6 points is too much for this divisional game. I think Cincy wins it, but I think Cleveland covers. And I'm going to bank on Deshaun looking a little bit better. I'm going to go over the 47 in this game. I just think since he has way too many weapons offensively, and yeah, I think Deshaun can kind of string up some points. So goes against the divisional unders, but I'm going to take a shot on the over.
Yeah, again, we see that 6 point spread. We didn't like it, or yeah, neither of us liked that really in the Vegas LA game on Thursday night. We see it again in this Cleveland Cincinnati game on Sunday. I just don't like that line, especially with Cleveland's success over Cincinnati. That's just a really weird line. I do think Cincinnati is going to win, like you said, and I'm also with you on the over in this game. I kind of woke up today just thinking that overs are going to hit because I've realized I have a lot of overs written down on my sheet, but I do think this one's going to go over. I did jot down a couple of the total scores in the last 5 games for each team. Cincinnati's last 5 include 51 points, 36, 67, 63, and 45. Cleveland's is 41, 40, 54, 56, 55. So both of those teams are hitting this over of 47, 3 out of their last 5. If you want to throw in the over of 45, they're the Cincinnati's hitting that 4 out of their last 5. So I think it is going to be high scoring. As we said, I think Deshaun's going to wake up a little bit. It is a huge divisional game, which usually goes against our over theory. But again, there's just too much offense in this game. And this is all banking on Deshaun waking up. But I think the Bengals roll. I don't know if they cover that 6. I think they're either going to win by 3 or they could win by 17. So just because of that disparity, I'm not going to touch the spread. This could be an easy money line, throw on the Bengals money line along with the Raiders money line. They're both at that 6 -6 spread that I could find myself taking. But I'm excited for that game. I think Cleveland they're still kind of in it. They're at 5-7 right now. They're not dead in the water. They have a lot of work to do. They're probably dead in the water now that I'm looking at it. But if a divisional win here could bring them back, and they do have Deshaun, who, if as much as you don't like the guy, he is a pretty solid quarterback from his history. So I do think he will bring something towards Cleveland, and maybe they can make a really late run in this season.
I have one more thing to say about that total there.
Yep.
Like I said, that first game was 13-32 in favor of Cleveland, so that hit the 45. I would put every penny I have on Cincy scoring more than 13 points in this game. I don't know if Cleveland's going to get to 32 again, but they did have success against them. So, yeah, I think there's good value in the over. And I also think in past years, this game has been quite a shootout within the last 5 years. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but looking yesterday, it was looking like it was going quite far over this in like 65% of their games in the past. So, yeah, I like that over.
I'm seeing the next game on our list. We do have the Jets at the Buffaloes. I don't have anything written down for this one. It is a AFC East matchup. Again, the Jets are kind of a sneaky, weird team. I know this has a lot of implications in regards to your Jets divisional wins. So you want to take this one away?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Probably won't get involved at all. Buffalo should win this game. It's a revenge game for them. They're only 1-2 in the division after that win against New England last week, so they need every divisional win they can get. So yeah, I don't know if I could lay the 9.5 with them though. I think I would have to take the Jets. But yeah, I don't have much on this game really. Buffalo played New England, now they're playing the Jets, then they have Miami on deck, so it's 3 straight divisional games for them. Buffalo has a rest advantage after playing Thursday night. I think the best way to look at this game would be the under. Both teams are in top 6 points per game allowed. And the Jets have actually been better in yards per play and yards per play against in the last 3 games. So I'd have to lean the Jets here. And then, yeah, I think the under is probably the best play. I don't know if I'll get involved whatsoever. I'll probably just be rooting for Buffalo to get the win.
Yeah, this is not a game that I probably will bet on either. But just looking at these two teams, I do see that over under at 43.5, and it's kind of, to me, screaming the over, which kind of, makes me want to bet the under on this one. I think the Jets have a lot of offensive potential, especially with Mike White, throwing for almost 400 a game. We saw Zach Wilson throw for quite a bit. We saw Joe Flacco at the beginning of the season throw for 400 plus yards. So this team has a lot of success in the air. And then we all know Buffalo can do what Buffalo does. So on paper, or just looking at it right now, I'm loving the over, but the line's really low for me to like that. Like I would think the total would be higher than 43. So it's kind of shocking that it's not, which is making me kind of lean the under in that one. But again, it's probably not a game I will get invested in. I'm definitely not gonna do anything today. But as we get closer to kickoff, maybe I'll throw something on there. But it's kind of just ugly spread, ugly total. Something I kind of just want to stay away from.
Yeah, 5 weeks ago was when they played their first game. That finished 17-20 in favor of New York, so was pretty low scoring. So I wonder if that has anything to do with that low total. And I actually kind of like taking the over when the first one went under. So I would have to look at that a little bit more, but yeah, who knows? It's a weird line.
Yeah. Yeah. Next, we have Tampa Bay against the 49ers. This will be a good matchup because we don't really know what the 49ers are going to do for a full 4 quarters without Jimmy G. Obviously, Tampa, they are playoff contenders. They are somehow leading the NFC South. It's probably the worst division in football. They're leading it at 6-6. The 49ers right now are one of the hottest teams in the NFC. They are sitting at 8-4, right up there with one of the best records in the NFL. Currently, San Fran is -3. The over/under is at a really low 37, but probably rightfully so. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. It's tough for me to bet a game where I'm not entirely sure what the quarterback play is going to consist of. We know what we're going to get with Tampa Bay. We're going to get Tom Brady, who's pretty old, but doesn't make too many wrong decisions. He's not going to really hurt you deep, but he could pick you apart under zone coverage that we saw this weekend. But I just can't trust a team like San Fran without a quarterback, a true quarterback. So part of me really wants to take the Bucks +3, 3.5, whatever it is right now. But I think that's a really, really sketchy line, possibly a pretty big trap. But again, I'm going to contradict myself. I do see this game as an under game written all over it. I think it's under, which is why I really like the over in this game. I could see Brock Purdy kind of going off maybe a little bit. Or I could see Tom Brady proving that, hey, we're still relevant, even though they're trying to convince everyone the last 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. They're just not good, but possibly this could be a breakout game for the Bucks, or it could be a breakout game for Brock Purdy. So either way, I think someone's going to have a breakout, and hopefully that will lead to points in a game that's just screaming the under to me.
Yeah, this is probably one of the tougher handicaps of the week, maybe of the year even. Just really weird. I actually just changed my opinion live, just right when you started talking about it. I had Tampa Bay +3 written down. I actually just changed it to San Fran. It's kind of, I like betting on both teams I don't know how to word this, but each team is in a spot that I like betting on the team. So I just don't know which spot I like more. I love betting on a team where their injured superstar or injured quarterback or whatever is the first game that they're out, which I guess he was out most of last game, but Purdy's gonna have a week of practice under his belt with getting team one reps, and I think that's really gonna help him. Like we mentioned earlier, I think San Fran's a great position for him to be in. I think they're gonna help carry him. They're not gonna ask him to do too much. However, San Fran has the Thursday night game on deck against Seattle, that could decide the division right there. So it's going to be the biggest game of the rest of their season on a short week, which makes me lean Tampa. And then Tampa's off a short week playing on Monday Night Football. So I just don't even know what to do. I think I would lean San Fran. I think they get it done. Could easily end with a push if that line closes at -3 for San Fran. I could see him winning by a field goal. And then I also like the under. I'm actually the opposite of you. I have a ton of unders written on my list today. I could barely find any overs. I think Brady showed us on Monday night he can't hit the deep ball. It's not even really that close. He had guys getting separation right and left going deep, couldn't hit them. we saw them on that first drive take up 8.5 minutes and only get a field goal out of it, which was just, I was on the under. I think we both were. So that was just
Yep.
absolutely beautiful. And I could just kind of see that again. I don't think they're going to let Purdy throw too many deep balls. I think they're just going to work it with McCaffrey and get Ayuk on some screen plays and Debo, which obviously either one of those could get loose and take it to the house. But I'm going to go under. I just think it's going to be each team's going to methodically move the ball down the field. I think both defenses are quite worthy of getting red zone stops. A lot of field goals going here. I know you're kind of a field goal prop better guy. Might be decent to look here at Suck Up or Robbie Gold. So that's probably where I'd lean. I don't know if I can get involved side or total here, but yeah, definitely lean the under. I think I'd go San Fran.
Yeah, it's funny you just said the kicker props because I literally just wrote that down. I'm going to be taking both kickers on this game. This is just a kicker game. So this could be a possible hedge towards my under or towards my total as well. So if the total doesn't hit, I imagine quite a bit of field goals. I still like the kicker props with the over as well, though. I don't know. For this is just a weird game that's just screaming under. I think a lot of people are thinking under, which is why I'm really going to take the over. But I do like kicker props for both of these ones. Tampa Bay is a huge kicking team. San Fran's a huge kicking team. You got to like these are the definitions of kicker prop teams. So that's a great. I'm glad you remember that because I just wrote that down. I am the kicker prop guy.
I actually have a quick question for that.
Yeah.
I don't dabble too much in the kicker props. Where can you find those? Pretty much any sports book, or what do you use?
Yeah, I got them on DraftKings. They are kind of hard to find. I know MGM doesn't really have them, but if you go on DraftKings, you got to go to defensive slash special teams props, and then they're under there. You can either get kicker points or field goals made.
Okay.
But yeah, MGM doesn't have it. I think FanDuel and DraftKings, or I know DraftKings does, but I think FanDuel does as well. But yeah, it's hard to find. I like doing the field goals, but I did take the Gano or whatever for the Giants. I took him over kicking, or sorry, for the Colts, whoever Colts kicker is this week.
Oh yeah, McLaughlin.
I took him over 4.5 kicking points, and he had 6 points in the first quarter, so that was a really
nice.
But yeah, you know, there's just those kicking teams. Obviously, you never want to take a kicking prop in Detroit, but teams like the Saints, the Bucks, the 49ers, the Giants, those are all huge kicking props. So I like this matchup because it's two of those teams that I really have success with. So
yeah,
glad you brought that up. Last one we have on our preview. We don't go through all of them because we would be here forever. But our last preview game is a Miami versus the Chargers game. I believe this is on Sunday night.
Yep.
And this currently right now the line's 3.5 points in favor of the Dolphins. Over under is set at 52. I, as you guessed it, am taking the over in this game, and I'm also going to take this game to end with exactly 3 points. I really like the Chargers +3 in this, but I do think that the Dolphins are going to take it by exactly 3. Again, I could see like a similar line, like I'm projecting in that Vikings-Lions game at like a 30-33. I think it's going to be really high scoring. You know, the Chargers are desperate for a win if they want to have any sort of postseason this year. They really need to get a win. Dolphins kind of got exposed last week, so I could see them getting kind of angry and Tua going off a little bit. But I just think this is going to be a really great quarterback battle with probably 600, 700 passing yards between the two teams. So I do like the over in this one, and I am leaning the Chargers +3, but I do also like the game ending Miami by exactly 3.
Yeah, I agree almost 100% with you there. This will probably be my last game I bet on the Chargers if they lose. I think this is it for them. It's a must win. And if they can't get it done here at home, I think it's time to start looking towards next season for them. There's just too many decent teams in the AFC fighting for that wild card, and they just really haven't looked that good. But yeah, I think the 3.5 is just too much. I'm gonna ride with them. Miami has Buffalo on deck, so they're really gonna be looking forward to that game. They need to get a win there. They've already beaten Buffalo once this year, so if they can sweep them, that could be the division right there. So I think that's a huge game for Miami. I think they get caught looking ahead. LA really, really, really needs this. And I also like the over. Miami is actually first in yards per play the last 3 games. LA is actually 31st out of 32, so not good, but it does look like Mike Williams is going to practice this entire week, so he should be back, and that really just opens up the entire playbook for them with Keenan Allen finally healthy. Mike Williams helps Eckler find space, and I really think there's just too much talent on both these offenses to take the under here. Um, so yeah, I give me LA plus the points. I think they could potentially win outright. Maybe put a little sprinkle on that money line. The over for sure. And then just one last thing. Miami, last I checked on the Action Network app, is getting 75% of the tickets right now. So I kind of like going against those really high tickets there. So just another reason to like LA.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I'm glad the people are all over Miami. Well, I'm interested to see what they are on the Vikings Lions. I'm gonna assume they are all over the Lions, but
It's pretty split, 53% towards
wow.
Minnesota. And I forgot to mention it in Cincy and Cleveland. Cincy's getting 78%. So
Wow.
quite
Okay.
high on Cincy.
Yeah, I don't know. The Lions just seems like a huge trap that I thought a lot of people were gonna a lot of sharps would be on Detroit, but
Yeah.
who knows?
That's weird to me. Yeah, it's gonna go either way. Lions are gonna get blown out or they're gonna win. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. So that ends our previews. Again, we're not going to talk about every game, but those are our biggest 5 matchups for the weekend. We will have more in-depth tweets and posts and whatnot come game day or closer to game days for those bets. We'll do a quick futures update. I know you're a pretty big futures guy. What do you got for us?
yeah, so we were talking about the Giants, Washington. I said we'd kind of come back, circle around on the futures page. So just looking this morning, you can get both the Giants and Washington to miss the playoffs at plus odds. And one of them is going to do it, in my opinion, because I think you get the 4 divisional winners with, we'll just say, Philly, Tampa, Minnesota, and San Francisco. Dallas is going to be in there. I think Seattle's going to be in there, which then really leaves New York or Washington. And that's if, Detroit doesn't come creeping up, or I think they'd probably be the only one that maybe Atlanta.
Yeah.
So I just think it's tough to decide. I didn't place a bet on this because I just didn't know which one I liked more. On DraftKings, New York is even odds plus 100. Washington is plus 140 to miss the playoffs. New York has at home against Philly, then at Washington, which is obviously going to be a huge game for this, at Minnesota versus Indianapolis, and then at Philly. So they might only get one more win in there, honestly. Washington's on their bye, but they already have one more loss than the Giants do. Then they're versus New York, Giants, at San Fran, versus Cleveland, versus Dallas. So both teams pretty tough schedule remaining. They're not both going to make the playoffs, I don't believe. So if you want to hit both of them, you're going to come out ahead more than likely, or at least push. Or if you like one side better than the other, you're going to get a pretty good return on that. So wanted to touch on that. And then lastly, I think there's some really good value in taking the Bengals to win the AFC North. Every book I checked, which was like 7, they're at plus odds right now. The best book was FanDuel plus 125. They do have a pretty tough schedule remaining on paper, but some of the teams aren't as good as you would have thought back in the beginning of the year, like Tampa Bay, maybe Cleveland, Baltimore now, who knows, with Lamar Jackson. So they're tied at 8-4. Baltimore does have a better tiebreaker record. They're undefeated, I believe, in the AFC North. They have the head-to-head win against Cincy. They do play the last game of the season, though. But I just think with Lamar, with questions around Lamar, with how good Cincy's looked, I think it could very much so come down to that final game against Baltimore. And I think Cincy probably would be favored. I believe Cincy's at home. So I think plus 125 on FanDuel is pretty solid value on Cincy to win the North.
Yeah, and with Lamar Jackson's injury, I'm not quite sure what the extent of that is. Something in his foot or knee. He's definitely not out, but I know he is questionable this weekend, and his longevity, because I know he's been battling injuries all year. So I do like that bet, just taking Bengals over the Ravens in the AFC North. So I think that has a lot of value to it. So I do like that.
Yeah, I think Lamar, they said, is 1 to 3 weeks
Okay.
is what I saw, or that's typically. But even if he comes back, it is a knee injury, so we're not going to see Lamar being Lamar for a couple weeks. So that is one I actually did go in and I bet this morning. I put 2 units on Cincy to win the North.
I love it. I'm gonna write that one down, because that's a good value for a team that is going to be without Lamar at least a week. It sounds like. Who knows? Oh, It is that PCL. I forgot that PCL strain or whatever it is. So
Yep.
definitely not going to be Lamar of that we're used to. So I do like that, betting the Bengals, who are just on fire right now. So that's a lot of value to it. We're adding a new segment into the show. We have a good challenge between Ethan and myself, and this challenge, it's going to change every week what the loser is going to do. But I think we're in agreement this week that the loser is going to do the one chip challenge. I'm not sure if you all seen that. It's just literally a box with a single tortilla chip. I believe the chip's like blue or whatever. Supposedly really hot. We're both talking a little bit before the show. We both, I guess, use quite a bit of spice in our normal diet. I go through pretty much a bottle of hot sauce every 2 weeks. Ethan says he likes going through quite a bit of spicy things as well. So this will be interesting, but I don't think I'm going to lose this week. Do we figure out the game? Do we want to go back to the Detroit Vikings game, or is there another game that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I think let's keep it in Detroit and Minnesota for sure. I guess we did differ on side and total in that game. So what would you prefer?
What would you prefer? I would prefer to take, I didn't know you're going to take the under in that game. So I would have preferred to take the over, but I wouldn't be opposed to just taking the Vikings money line against your Detroit money line.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think in fairness, the over under would probably be better since they're both lined at minus 110.
Okay.
Instead of you having to take a plus odds on Minnesota money line. I'm cool with doing over under.
Okay. So I'm locking in the over at 52.5 of Detroit, Minnesota,
Okay.
and you're locking the under, correct?
Yep.
All right. And then the loser will start off the show next week. Well, hopefully we can get it, the chip in time. Whenever we get the chip, the loser will be eating that on the podcast. I'll allow, it's not going to be me, it's going to be you. So I'll allow some milk if you want to have yourself a glass of milk there. I'm probably just going to have water if I lose, but
yeah, I'm lactose intolerant. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you could have some almond milk or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do. That's going to be something we're going to do for each show. We'll have a punishment, something that we could probably do on the podcast. But yeah, that'll be an interesting game. That was the game we have the most differences in, and I personally think the Vikings are going to win as well as the over. But the challenge is just simply on the point total. So that'll be exciting, and we'll transition from that into our favorite bets of the weekend. We'll give a quick update. I am currently almost at even. I'm sitting at 7-8 on my last 3 weeks. Last week I went 3-5. My most confident play in Detroit did win. The under in Tampa Bay won, and then Minnesota money line won for my favorite. I did lose Tennessee money line and the Kansas City Cincinnati over. Ethan, I believe you are currently sitting at 4-11. You went 2-5 this past week. Fortunately, you lost Kansas City money line, Kansas City over, and Tennessee money line. We lost 2 of the same. You did win, however, the Cleveland, Houston under and the San Francisco money line. So again, we're not great. Our records are, again, not profitable, but we can only build off that. And Ethan did go 0-5 2 weeks ago. I went 2-5. So we did increase from that week to 3-2 and 2-3. So it is an improvement. Again, we're still not where we want to be. That's still not evidence that you should listen to any of our betting advice until we can prove ourselves. But yeah, do you have anything about your performance or anything from the last week?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, it sucked 4-11 in 3 weeks. I just kind of want to give a PSA, like, yeah, don't listen to us and go betting every play that we're handing out. We do this for content. We like these plays. These are leans, but I am by no means betting every play that I'm saying here, especially, it's Wednesday. A lot of things change from Wednesday to
Right.
kickoff on Sunday. So, um, yeah, we're not just handing out random plays that, whatever. We have reasons and feelings towards them, but yeah, definitely don't go listening to everything we say.
Yeah, I mean, my name's Worst Bet, so that should just be enough for you.
Right.
Um, yeah, we'll get into it. I think, we were talking before the show. I just placed all five of mine right before I got on, and I parlayed all five of them. Ethan believed he had really liked his plays as a statement, I think he said.
Mhm.
So we'll hold that to him. And I did put a unit on every one of them and then a half unit on the parlay. Um, so yeah, let's get into it. So again, the structure of this, we have a most confident play. We have our favorite over and under of the week. We have our underdog, and then we have our favorite or the team that's expected to win. So we have 5 bets each week, and I will start with my most confident play. I'm going to go to that Sunday night matchup between Miami and the Chargers, and I'm going to hammer that over of 52. Again, I think it's going to be a QB shootout. I can see the game ending exactly at 3 points, but I think it's going to be like a 30-33 type of game where I really like the over in this one.
I like that. Obviously we talked about earlier. Um, I'm gonna change it up just a little bit for my most confident, go a little unorthodox here. But hey, I'm 4-11. I need to do what I can to get a win. So I'm actually gonna take a money line parlay. It comes out to minus 118, so pretty standard there. And it's just gonna be Tennessee and Kansas City. Money line parlay. I think Kansas City, huge bounce back spot for them, and Tennessee as well, huge bounce back at home, divisional game, kind of need it. So yeah, Kansas City's pretty safe. Tennessee's the more risky one, but I think they both get there fairly easily.
Yeah, I like the little two-teamer in there at the favorite play. I like that. I am surprised they're still on the Tennessee wagon. We've got screwed by them 2 weeks in a row
I
now,
can't believe it.
but he's on it, and he got screwed by the Kansas City last week. So this is kind of a
Mhm.
revenge parlay for you that I love. I love you're just facing it head on,
Yeah.
and that's a great play there. We'll add our overs and unders together here. I'll let you go first. Give me your over and your under of the week.
So this is bad because we're in lockstep again. My over is that Miami and the Chargers over 52. Um, and I'm actually gonna let you give out your over and then your under first. I'm bouncing
Okay.
between two unders. So if you give out one of them, I'll take the other one. If you don't, then I guess I'll just have to make a split second decision.
Okay. Both my point total games are both at that 37, which is absolutely gross. So I'd highly recommend, taking this with a grain of salt. But I'm gonna take that Tampa Bay San Francisco over of 37. Again, I hated this one. I This is screaming under to me. This is screaming under, under, under. But I'm gonna hammer that over of 37. I think either Tampa Bay or as I said, Purdy are gonna have breakout games. Again, I do think there are gonna be quite a bit of kicking props, but I do think it's going to be like a 24-20 type of game, possibly a 3 point game in favor of Tampa. I think Tampa's going to squeak it out, but I do think that's going to go over that 37. Again, that's a pretty ugly play just because on paper it makes no sense. I am going to take that other game that's at 37. I'm going to go under in the Baltimore Pittsburgh game. Baltimore, we talked about a little bit without Lamar Jackson. I believe Huntley, correct me if I'm wrong, is the quarterback.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, he's still a really good runner. We saw him a little bit last year. He definitely is a playmaker, but again, Baltimore struggled even with Lamar this year. So I don't think they're going to score quite a bit. And then Pittsburgh is just known for their defense and their offense. Even though they've shown glimpse of decency, they are not anywhere near top of the league. So I do see that one going under of 37 in Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
All right, so we accomplished something there because Baltimore Pittsburgh was one of the two I was looking
Okay.
at. So yeah, I won't we won't match up there, but I do like that play a lot. Um, and also with your over, I think if Tom Brady's probably going to be working on that deep ball this week, so if you can hit one or two of those, you're looking already close to halfway there. So my under that I'll go with is I'm just going to go back to the well with Denver. Even though they're playing Kansas City this week, I don't trust that Denver can put up too many points, maybe 14, which just leaves Kansas City to put up 30, which they could easily do, but um, I'm just going to take a shot, see if the unders in Denver can keep hitting.
Yeah, I also was looking at that one. You see Kansas City when they play a much lesser opponent, they really don't seem to blow them out. Like, I know it was 2 or 3 weeks ago they won 16-3 or something like that. Like they're not blowing teams out of the water. They don't do anything more than they have to. It
Right.
seems like in those games. So I was looking at that one earlier. It's just hard for me to bet on the Kansas City under just because it's Kansas City.
Right.
But I was looking at that one, so I can see where you're coming from. I'll talk my favorite, as in my team that's expected to win. I just like you. I've been screwed by Tennessee, and I was giving you a little shit before, but I'm going back to Tennessee money line. They're minus 200, which isn't great, but they are playing Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is okay after suffering a weird looking injury against the Lions, but it looks like he's going to play. But I don't know if he's going to be completely healthy. So Tennessee needs to win. They deserve to win. If I feel like the Jags are only a good home team, and I don't think they can travel well. Tennessee just coming off a bad loss to the Eagles. They're in a great spot, in my opinion, to prove that they are still a Super Bowl contender, like I have them in my prediction. But so I like Tennessee money line. It's not a great minus 200, but I have a hard time seeing them losing to the Jags.
Yeah, I have Tennessee as well. Yeah, I mean, I could switch it up, but
No, 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 that's fine.
yeah, yeah. If I was 11-4, I'd give you something a little more juicy, but I'd really like Tennessee. Kind of cheap. I'm taking them as part of the parlay, and you know what? No, I'm gonna switch it up here.
All right.
I'm gonna give you
No
something
pressure. No
different.
pressure if you want to keep it.
I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna give you oh, let's just do it. Let's go Detroit.
Okay. Detroit money line.
Oh man, I believe last I checked was minus 135.
Yeah,
Uh
that's right around there.
can't see it getting any higher. So if you are betting that, wait. It's gonna get probably down to minus 115, I'd say. So but yeah, for the show purpose, I'll be
All right,
different.
respect. I'm gonna go against you right there for my underdog, and I'm gonna take the Vikings underdog. Um, I just think the Vikings are gonna win this game. The line is too fishy for me. It's 100% a trap to take Vikings, I believe. But I just think there's just a lot of hype in Detroit. And they are a team that I think can use that to their advantage. But I just think Minnesota is a better team. It is going to go over like our challenge, but it is going to go over. But I do think that Minnesota wins this one by 7 to 10 points. They are plus 115 as well
Plus one
right now.
All righty. Well, a little head action there. That makes me happy that we did the challenge on the total instead of the side there. But all right, I'll round out the dog. I like Baltimore to go into Pittsburgh. I think they can win outright. Tyler Huntley will be playing, but he is only 1-3 as a starter in the NFL. His three losses though were at the tail end of last year. Green Bay, when the Green Bay was actually good. The future Super Bowl champion LA Rams and Pittsburgh, who wasn't quite as bad last year as they are this year. So three formidable losses for him. I think he's he's only getting better as time goes along. He's very similar to Lamar Jackson, so they don't have to change their offense at all. And yeah, I don't think Pittsburgh's that good. Baltimore needs this win, so I think Baltimore can get it done. That's plus 125 last I checked.
Yeah, it is. I did not see them. I didn't even look at that one. Yeah, that's it is weird that they are the underdog. I understand Lamar's out. Might hurt your AFC North future, but
Right.
whatever.
Right.
There's still more weeks to play. I like those. Yeah, so that's pretty much wraps up the show. We have our 5 bets. We do have our one chip challenge this week. And then a lot of fantasy implications. We didn't talk much about fantasy, but last week are coming down to the end in a lot of fantasy weeks. So big, exciting time in the NFL. Lions are kind of making a push. We'll see if that will stay consistent. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Make sure to follow us on both of our Twitters as well as our Cover 2 podcast Twitter. And we do have a TikTok as well that is recapping the show as well as updating us on any NFL news. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, and I think just one last thing to touch on. I think if anyone has any ideas for the challenge, for the punishment or whatever, send them our way because we're gonna probably struggle to think weekly of decent things that we can do on air. So any ideas, let us know.